next installment of the Virtuosi Music Cafe. Our guest in the studio today is Dr. Michael Schiano. Welcome.
Thank you.
And we'll be talking about one of the greatest symphonies written, Beethoven's Eroica. Dr. Schiano, it's a very fascinating piece, that Eroica thing.
Absolutely. There's hardly an aspect of it that's not fascinating.
Well, let's talk about, first of all, the social and perhaps the personal aspects, meaning the relationship between Beethoven and Napoleon, or his sort of way of looking at things, and his emotional attachment, relationship to the revolution and the ideas of freedom, and then what happened afterwards.
Well, it's a clear link. It's not just a story. You know, Beethoven does, in fact, want to call the piece Bonaparte. In fact, and we have a letter where he writes to a sponsor, or actually his student Ferdinand Ries writes to a sponsor and says, "You can have the piece for this much money. If not, we're going to dedicate it to Napoleon. But otherwise, we can dedicate it to you, but we'll just have Napoleon in the title. Actually, Bonaparte, not Napoleon." And that stays with it all the way until actual publication, where instead of it actually saying Bonaparte, by then it's changed to Hero, or to a Sinfonia Eroica, to the memory of a hero.
Of a hero.
Yes.
But we also have in that work the funeral march.
Yes, if the hero becomes part of a hero's life, may well include the death of the hero, and.
But wasn't it the death of the ideals that Napoleon represented to Beethoven?
Well,
and then eventually it could have crashed because Napoleon called himself a ruler of the French.
Well, the quick story involves Beethoven wanting to have Bonaparte as the title, and there's a point where the French Senate allows Bonaparte to be emperor.
That's
and
right.
at the crowning, he takes the crown from Pope Pius VII and puts it on his own head, and thereby decides that no one is making me emperor, I'm making myself emperor. That kind of thing, and word of that gets around, and Beethoven is very disillusioned by that. We think, though, that he kept the heroic title because of his other interests in classic classic heroism and in classic stories, and we feel that he just transferred it to that.
I believe that, in a way, the Beethoven's ideals still live, even though the person who exemplified those ideals really did not deliver them.
Oh, sure. I mean, I agree. In fact, he could see himself in Beethoven, in Napoleon very easily, right? Napoleon is a self-made, a self-made man. He wasn't born wasn't born emperor or
Right.
born first consul or anything like that. He really scratched his way up from the lower ranks. And Beethoven is living at a time when such a thing is just about becoming possible,
Right.
where even though he's not nobility, he can create a situation for himself where he can be treated as such. He can't
Right.
marry into it. There's certain things that are still not allowable, but he certainly has the ability by his genius to climb much higher than anybody else.
In many ways, Beethoven climbed higher than Napoleon. Napoleon represents a failed ideals, where Beethoven lives with us until now. And in the history, throughout the history,
Yeah.
he actually climbed higher. In fact, I mean, perhaps for the musicians.
Yeah,
for the
I
music
think we all and equal in our view in Beethoven is the fact that he's one of us, right? He's human. He makes mistakes. We have his. He was kind enough to leave us so much evidence of how long it took him to create his pieces. Someone like Mozart, whom we don't know all that much about compositional processes, it seems as if he just wrote them, but it's easier to associate yourself with somebody who works very hard and eventually comes up with the product.
Right. Well, the idea of having a third movement, not a minuet anymore, but scherzo, that's also Beethoven's, isn't it?
Yeah, it's certainly his first symphony. Haydn would have already used it in quartets.
Yes.
Okay, but certainly as a symphonic idea, that was Beethoven. And this is, of course, a unique minuet or unique trio scherzo, right? The wonderful place where everything is going in three, and then there's an alla breve passage.
Yes.
And he never does that again, ever. I mean, it's a wonderful idea, but it's one of the few places. This was one of the places in the Eroica that never happened again, that we never really see in any other piece. And,
But also he also contrasts the instrumentation where the strings are really driving it forward, but then you have these purely woodwinds elements, and the contrast, even though they play the same material, he plays with colors in a very well, maybe not the very unique way, but certainly very interesting way. And then the horn solo in a trio, which is not the easy one.
no,
No.
I guess not.